we have heard is that inflation has gone up so much, and I guess salaries have not been able to keep up with that inflation rate, right? So what do you? So are these salary demands or benefit demands so unrealistic?
Good question. Actually, when we said about when we talk about the unrealistic demand, that's actually both sides of the story. On one hand, and there's a gap actually. On one hand, the fresh graduates tend to ask for a little bit more, and I personally also think that in the private sector, the company also are not up to benchmark in that sense. If we look at the average salary of the private sectors, it is around 2,200. Okay? It's slightly higher for the technical domain. Things like IT, engineering will pay an average of 2004 to 2005. On more general domains, specializations, it will be around 21 to 22. So personally, I do think that that is quite low scale as well. So I think that, but on the other hand, right, we are not talking about fresh graduates asking for 2.5 or 2.6. They are asking for over 3,000. It's quite high. So you can see the expectation gap from one end to the other end is actually big. So we would want to, from our perspective, we see this problem from the ground perspective, and we would like to see how we can close the gap together. For example, from the last survey that we ran recently, there is still that gap, but I would say that it has improved. Now, a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, we ran the survey on the fresh grad demand of the salary, what they would like. So over 60% mentioned that they would like a salary of 3,500. That's actually very high. Like you can see the gap, right? But this year when we ran it, we feel that whatever education, it has kind of taken effect because we see a lower percentage that is actually demanding a higher salary. So from the fresh graduates perspective, number of graduates, percentage of graduates, 34% that actually look at 3,000 or higher. So the gap has come down, which is good actually. But we also see that from the employer side, it's still hovering within that range. In fact, of the 3,000, 34% that fresh graduates that wants their 3,000 salary, only 2% of the employers are willing to pay for that. 2%. So there is still that gap. So that's why we are having, the forum today also to discuss how we can kind of pull the gap together as well, because I think that it is really, really very still a problem at the moment of this expectation gap. It's not one party or the other. I think both parties have to play their role in order, and the institution of higher learning as well, in order to, on one hand, make sure that it's at a benchmark that's realistic in that sense. Okay. On the other hand, I think on the employer side, they also have to benchmark themselves against other players in the industry, not only in Malaysia, but we are talking about global. It's a global market at the moment, and we will lose out a lot of this if we continue to be at this low level. Our best graduates will not want to remain in Malaysia if this situation prolongs in that sense.
Okay. Maybe Datuk would like to reply.
Yeah. I think, well, I'm looking from the education point of view at the expectation gap. I think it is important, most probably, to create this awareness among the graduates before they leave the university, that there are certain, pay scales that they would be offered. Because I think the problem now is they are not aware of the type of salary scales that they would probably be getting as a graduate or as a diploma holder from Polytechnic and a certificate holder from community colleges. So most probably in this particular forum, maybe we could look at the need for awareness raising among the graduates to know what the salary scales are being offered by the industries for different types of qualification that the students have.